another video for those online DMs out there. Well, once again, really all DMs, but in this case especially, online DMs have it easier and more necessary. I want to talk about a tool that I see some online DMs use, but others not so much. This tool is, as will be obvious by the title of this video, music. Don't discount the effect of music. In a lot of ways, music is emotional easy mode. If you want to make a human feel something, you simply play a bit of music that conveys that feeling. It's extremely simple, but it always works. If you have a section in your game that you want to make your players feel a certain thing, all you really have to do is just find a bit of music that conveys that feeling. It's that easy. Now, of course, then the question becomes, what type of music and where can I get this music? What type of music? I would say go for instrumental tracks. Try to avoid tracks that are talking. Try to avoid tracks with singing, especially singing in a language that people understand. You see, especially for online DMs, the game can have kind of awkward silence moments. Moments where no one is talking. You really kind of want something to fill in the blank space. A bit of music is perfect for that job, and in this case especially the online DM has it easy because if you use something like Roll20 for instance, you can simply make that play the music. People can balance the audio, the level of how loud it is themselves. Really, it's just a great tool. But what you don't want is for anyone's talking to be overshadowed. And once again, this is an online DM problem. People online have very different qualities of microphones. I like to think I have a pretty good one, which is kind of what I expect of most, at least a DM. Just as DM, you need a good microphone because you'll be talking so much. But someone else can have a lesser microphone because, not everybody needs a bloody microphone. But that makes them slightly harder to understand. The worst thing you can do is kind of constantly overpower them with music that's talking over them. And that's why I say, don't include music with singing. You want tracks that are purely music, purely instrumental. So, where will you get these tracks? In my opinion, in my experience, some of the best places to look are soundtracks. Especially game soundtracks. Especially game soundtracks with an open world. The specific thing about a game soundtrack with an open world is they don't know exactly what every piece of music will be for, what exact part of the game it will be played in. For instance, I almost always use, well, not really at this point, but I used to always use Skyrim. Skyrim has a couple thousand locations. They didn't write individual pieces of music for every location. Instead, they have a library that they can pick from at kind of a situation, at a location. I think it has largely 5 categories, so let's explain this exactly with an example. Skyrim has music for towns. When you are in a town, any town really, the game will try to pick out a track that fits with a town. And so something like the city gates will play in the background. These tend to be slow, nice melodies that don't overpower anything. They are calm because generally you won't get attacked by anything. I mean, it's kind of obvious. It's great music that fits in towns. The second category for me is kind of the wilds. The music you hear when traveling. This is music tracks like Awake. These tend to be slightly bigger songs, as you're not listening to people talking, or not nearly as much. Instead, you kind of have the music to keep you company. The music is generally also slightly more busy, because stuff can happen. You can get jumped by bandits or something, or wildlife, or anything really. And you are constantly moving, or nearly constantly. So, the music is slightly more active, but it's not music of you're in trouble. The third type for me is always dungeons. This isn't fighting music, this is music of you're in a hostile place. Shit can happen to you at any moment, really. Something like A Night Without Stars. This really can get just the creepy factor going, which is a useful tool for you. Then there's combat. In Skyrim this plays when you're fighting basically everything. It's a pretty wild margin, for instance, Steel on Steel. These are tracks that kind of carry the weight of combat. They give the feeling of, oh shit, you're in trouble. And then there's also, of course, the dragon fights, or I guess more generally the boss fights. One Day Fear, for instance. These are the big tracks. These are the tracks of, oh shit, everything's going down now. Now these 5 categories are very easy to translate into D&D. Music for in town, music for when traveling, music for when in a dungeon, music for regular combat, and music for boss fights. That fits perfectly. And these are also the 5 categories I use to categorize the music I use. Over at this point roughly 9 months? Seriously? Jesus Christ. I have added one category to it, which is sad. Because, like I said, music is the emotional easy button. So if you play something like Tears in Rain, suddenly people will feel even shittier after something happened that made them feel shitty. Which is something I should probably also cover in a video, my first player death. That was a thing. And music from other places, you can easily, well, often you can easily slot them into these categories. The problem I tend to find with other music is that it tends to swirl a bit in the end, or swirl in the middle, or have a bridge that really changes how the song feels, which is great for a music track, just it makes it feel dynamic, it makes it feel just great. It's absolutely terrible when you want the music to carry one emotion the entire time because you picked it because it carries one emotion. Now of course, for me this is easy because I love pure instrumental tracks, so I have a lot of music from Dust and Elysian Tale, which has some great boss music, for instance. The Skyrim soundtrack, the soundtrack to Falskal, which has some great town and travel music. Windwolf, who has some great wild combat and boss fight music, etc, etc. I have a lot of instrumental tracks that I know of that I'll use. But if you don't, you can probably just pick something like... I mean, it's a relatively safe bet that you have some form of music like the music from Harry Potter, which also works. Or the music from Lord of the Rings, which is just nice and epic and tends to fit most scenarios too. And really, never underestimate the power that music has. Music is just this monolithic force that everyone kind of respects. Everyone gets affected by music, and it's great for filling up the dead space in conversations. So yeah, that's kind of my tip to online DMs. And really just DMs in general. Don't forget to utilize music, and for simple mode, just take certain tracks from the Skyrim soundtrack and categorize them into town, wilds, dungeon, combat, and boss fight, and just call upon them whenever you feel like it. So, I hope anyone found this useful. This has been Vinix, saying farewell.